49ers Vikings preseason week number 2, not so rapid react episode. Croc's notes, my notes from preseason week 2, who are winning those roster spots for the San Francisco 49ers in 2022. Coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you, as always, at BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season. More props, more odds, more lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I think where we have to start, Croc, in this one, when we're breaking down preseason week number 2, is by talking about who was not on the field, because it's really important with context, with everything we saw. You know, if someone's beating up on third stringers, is even that impressive, right? For someone who had a really good performance, which we're going to talk about some of those. Or will we be overrating some of those things because neither team was starting any starters except for a few? And I think we can learn some things about who's safe on the 49ers roster, who might be battling right now on the 49ers roster, just by who was active and who was not active. Both teams actually held out exactly 27 players from this game. And so I want to list a couple of them. Basically every starter on both sides of the ball, except on offense, the 2 young guards. It was Aaron Banks and Spencer Burford that played. And on defense, it was Javon Kinlaw that played. So, I mean, Kinlaw's not a roster bubble guy, but they're treating Kinlaw like a rookie that needs just more reps. And I guess he does need a lot more reps, right, to get ready. So I thought that
probably more reps and testing that knee out.
Testing the knee.
Yeah, I don't even want to say testing. Maybe there's always this kind of plan that goes into bringing your guy back. And maybe part of his plan was he needs to get games on it, maybe to see if there's any type of flare up and then how they would deal with that. But he played last week when no other starting defensive lineman played except for maybe Ebicam. And then he also played, a few possessions this week.
So Jake Brendel and Daniel Brunskill both sat. So that means they're both locks to make the team. Which one's going to start at center? I'm not sure. Probably leaning toward Jake Brendel there. And does Brunskill just jump in at guard if the 49ers didn't like what they saw from a couple of the young guards on the team? So that's another wrinkle potentially. Charlie Warner's an interesting one, but he had been banged up. He came off the PUP list last week, so I don't think you can draw too many conclusions there, but I do think he's got a leg up on tight end too for the 49ers. Jeff Wilson, sort of a similar story. They know Jeff Wilson. He's been banged up a little bit, and they don't want to put him out there. So I don't think it necessarily means anything, but I think just by judging by his veteran status and his usage in camp and seeing those reps that, he's probably running back 2 right now for the 49ers, but I don't know if he's safe. He could get the Darquez Dennard treatment too. So I don't want to go too far there either. Of the guys that sat, Jalen Moore, also injury related. So I don't think we should take too much from that one, but there's 2 players. One, Talanoa Hufanga. He's the starter. We'd already talked about it. We were locking him in as a starter. He's the starter. He was treated as such. He was sitting. So that's that. Dante Johnson, a little banged up, so you can't take too much from that one. But the other one, healthy scratch in this game, is congratulations, Colton McKivitz. He won the swing tackle job, right? Because he was treated like one of the ones. They didn't allow Colton McKivitz to play, but they let the young guards go out there and play. So that tells me Colton McKivitz is completely locked up. And then when you see the tackles, how they played behind him, who were in the game, that looks even better for someone like Colton McKivitz.
Although, if I'm not mistaken, Justin School had some high grades for run blocking, and I think just overall.
I wasn't giving out those grades. I didn't necessarily see that. I'm not sure what the PFF numbers look like for him, but I didn't. 67 and 50, both the offensive tackles. I wasn't super impressed with those guys. Keaton Sutherland, who started at center, I think had some problems with T.Y. McGill on the other side. And that's what I told our colleague and host of Locked On Vikings, Luke Braun. During the game, he was talking about how good a couple of defensive linemen were looking. And I said, well, if it happened against, 67, 66, or 50, I don't know if it really even counts because I don't think those guys are going to be making the roster. So, again, that's the context going the other way, too, because I think a lot of fans got excited about guys who were playing in the second half against players who might not be making the Vikings roster. So we'll talk about some of those things in that context going forward. But, Croc, when it comes to quarterbacks, is there a battle going on? We know who QB1 is, but is 2 and 3 not settled? Because I came away like right before kickoff, basically, it was to me clear that Nate Sudfeld was the backup. He had that little bit of guaranteed scratch coming into the year. I hadn't been super impressed with Sudfeld in previous seasons, but seeing him in camp, seeing him in this preseason game, seeing him in preseason game number 1, I came away feeling pretty good about Nate Sudfeld, backup quarterback. I'm not saying he needs to be a starter somewhere, but I liked him as a backup. But alternating with Purdy makes me think the 49ers want to see them on an even playing field, which means that's a competition.
Yeah, man. I thought when I saw Nate Sudfeld go out of the game pretty much in the first quarter, I'm like, wow, they're going to let Brock Purdy just play 3 straight quarters. And then to see Nate Sudfeld eventually come back in, now I'm thinking, all right, maybe he just tweaked something. Maybe he just needed to get stretched out, and then eventually he was going to come back in. But they continued to do this kind of back and forth thing with both quarterbacks. And I heard on the broadcast that they said, Brock Purdy had played a lot with the second group in practice with the Vikings. And I was like, man, it's pretty interesting. Is this a battle going on? Which I'm like you. I thought it was Nate Sudfeld's job. That's a guy that they gave a lot of money to. It seemed like, and a lot of money relative to just a backup, a guy that they have, on their roster, giving him guaranteed money. But I've always thought that he looked good as the reserve guy. And if he's your backup quarterback, you kind of feel good about that. He even looks like he has a little bit more consistency with, just throwing the ball than your starter, Trey Lance. So, obviously Trey Lance definitely more of a playmaker, but just in the sense of someone who can run your offense, I thought it's been solid. So I was really surprised to see them do the alternating thing with Nate Sudfeld and Brock Purdy. And I wonder if maybe we're looking too far into it, or is this a real thing?
Yeah, if it wasn't a competition, you would have just had Sudfeld out there, then he would be done, and you put Purdy in, right? So, and to me, clearly it should be Sudfeld that's the backup, and I've been impressed. I've been pleasantly surprised by both quarterbacks. I think Purdy's come along quickly, but I don't think Purdy's outplayed Sudfeld really at all. He didn't in this game. I don't think he has in the practices that I saw in the first preseason game. So I get wanting to give him a look, but that's a little bit surprising, which tells me that they were thinking about maybe cutting one of them, right? Because, well, first of all, are you going to keep 3 quarterbacks? Because Purdy seems like the guy that you would, just try to get back on the practice squad. That's what I thought the plan was going to be all along. You keep 3 quarterbacks. Now you got to get rid of another player from another position that you might not want to, that you have some depth with. So that did get a lot more interesting. And I'm sure we'll hear Kyle Shanahan speak about it a little bit more, and we'll get some more clarification in this preseason game number 3. But you got to start getting your backup quarterback ready to play. So they got to have that ready to go for the rehearsal in week 3 of the preseason.
Unless you feel like somehow, some way, this is a 4th round Kirk Cousins type selection where it's like, hey, this guy potentially can be a long-term starter in the NFL. If you just think Brock Purdy is a legit backup, which his skill set says more of like legit backup, right? Yeah. It's like maybe a hair more than what you get from Nick Mullins from an athletic standpoint. The arm is very similar from that standpoint, but not someone that you would peg as just, hey, this is a guy who's going to be a starter in the NFL. Maybe he will be one day. We'll see. But if you don't think that, then I don't see any reason for keeping 3 quarterbacks, in my opinion. I think you go with Trey Lance, Nate Sudfeld, and you let the guy go. And if he comes back on practice squad, great. I thought it was a mess with what they did with Jimmy Garoppolo, CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, and you understood it a little bit because it was like, is Nick Mullins better than CJ Beathard? But they drafted CJ Beathard 3rd round, so it was almost like we kind of got to keep CJ Beathard because we kind of traded up for him and we like him. But then you have Nick Mullins. I don't know. It's is really not needed, and it takes away from an extra guy on the roster. There might be a 7th receiver that you really want. There might be a 7th cornerback. There might be another edge rusher. You have a really deep defensive line here. And keeping that one extra quarterback that probably will never really see the field, I just think it's kind of pointless. And matter of fact, if you get down to your 3rd string quarterback, you're likely not going to be in a great place anyways. So I don't know. Maybe they just really like him, but I would do it. And this is nothing against Purdy. It's just if you are saying, hey, he's a solid backup, then you might as well just stick with Nate Sudfeld and Trey Lance and see what happens. And maybe you can bring him back on practice squad.
As a 7th rounder, having the long-term, 4 years of rookie contract, I could see that if it's a tie going with the more cost-controlled player than Nate Sudfeld. If you only want to keep 2 quarterbacks, if you're going to be keeping 3, then have the veteran be the 2 and Purdy be the 3. So,
is it cost effective though if you have to release Nate Sudfeld in the process, who you get guaranteed money to?
I mean, you're paying him either way, so it doesn't change things. But once you get to the next couple of years, it definitely changes things.
Okay, so are you saying? Well, all right, we really like him, and we'll eat that this year for that roster spot. But next year, we know moving forward, we can go with Brock Purdy, and we won't bring back Nate Sudfeld.
You have as cheap of a player as you can at backup quarterback that you feel good about, basically, for the next 4 years. Brock Purdy.
That's a good way. That helped me. Okay, so if you want to sacrifice a roster spot this year because for the next 3 years you have this quarterback, from that standpoint, I understand.
How about this too? Like maybe some roster politics here, because you would think roster politics with the guaranteed couple, there's only a couple million guaranteed for Nate Sudfeld, would keep him and his status where he's at with the backup. And I think he's won the job anyway. So I think he will be the backup this year. But Sudfeld was Scangarello's guy that he brought in from Philly, right? Brock Purdy's Kyle's guy that he just drafted. So maybe Kyle's looking at this like, well, it's closer than we thought it was going to be. I'm going to take my guy. And then we'll do something else with Sudfeld. Just throwing it out there.
They already gave Sudfeld the money. I mean, it's like once you give him that guaranteed, and I know fans are going to be like, that's not a lot. I mean, $2 million guaranteed, that's enough for a backup to where it's like, man, you might as well just keep this guy.
And like, is Purdy getting swooped up if they tried to put him on waivers? I don't think he would.
Every single team passed on him.
Yeah, right.
Every team.
Literally. With every single
and not once, not twice, not 3 times. Like every team passed on him like 10 times.
If the 49ers didn't take him with the very last pick in the draft, he would have been undrafted. So, speaking of undrafted, we got to talk about the running back position, maybe some roster politics there as well. Get to the defensive side of the ball. I think there's a lot of takeaways from preseason week number 2, even though we did not see most of the starters out there for the 49ers or the Vikings. You want to bet on the San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl? You like what you're seeing so far? Guess what? You can find those things at betonline.net, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports, not just NFL, events, the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Take the over on 12 sacks for Nick Bosa, as Croc and I did. You've got Major League Baseball as well. You've got NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. Live in-game betting. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource, not just for your actual wagering, but for sports information as well. All you got to do is get over to BetOnline today. Use your desktop or mobile device to learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day. It's Fantasy Draft Week on the Locked On Podcast Network. However you play, experts from Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty Football will bring you daily positional top 10 lists to get you ready for the season. Find Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Running backs, Croc. This is going to be fun. This is going to be the matchup to watch, the position battle to watch in preseason week number 3. How they're utilized, who gets on the field, because, man, the undrafted, really all the undrafted guys. Like the third, it's so funny with the 49ers position group. It goes all the way back to it goes all the way back to Raheem Mostert, right? He was here before Kyle Shanahan even got here, and he became the number 1 guy. We saw a 6th-rounder beat out a 3rd-rounder last year. And right now there might be an undrafted free agent, Jordan Mason, that's beating out everybody else behind Elijah Mitchell. But
real quick, Peacock, that was our big issue, right? And people were, well, why do you hate the pick so much? I mean, we got on here and ripped the pick, and it had nothing to do with Ty Davis Price. It was just the value of it. It's like, look, you just got great value. And it kind of reminds me of the situation with the Jaguars. You had a running back that you got undrafted. Robinson, I believe his name is number 25 now, right? So you got the running back for Jaguars, undrafted, ran for over 1,000 yards. And then you go and draft a running back first round. That value, it just never made sense to me. Same with the 49ers. You got Elijah Mitchell. He outran or outproduced and was the guy, your third round pick. So you got him in the 6th round, outproduced your third round guy. You've had a ton of success with guys that are undrafted. And then you say, you know what, we're going to double down on this. We're going to go and we're going to draft a guy 3rd round. And I hated the thought of taking a running back then because I'm like, well, the 49ers' most productive guys have been mid to like late round guys, like either late or undrafted. They're like last 5 rushing leaders or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, it's like
Mostert, Breida, Jeff Wilson,
undrafted.
The highest one drafted was a 6th rounder, and Elijah Mitchell who beat out a 3rd rounder. And then
so why go and draft a guy 3rd round? And then next thing you know, what you've been able to do, you found a guy who again, like we're talking about the last minutes of the game. Are any of these guys going to be making the roster? I mean, you have to take that to account as well. But he looks like a clone of Jeff Wilson, right? And I'm talking about Jordan Mason. He looks like a clone of Jeff Wilson to the point where everybody's like, oh, and there have been people that are like, I really like him. That's the guy I think he's going to make the roster. Well, then why draft a guy TDP? And I like TDP. I like the way he runs. I think he has a nice little balance. He's figuring it out in the sense of how Kyle Shanahan wants him to run. I can see him kind of having this battle within himself where it's like, I kind of want to run like this, but I know I'm being told to run like this. So he's figuring that part of it out. But when you just see him let his like natural abilities kind of take over and he kind of bounce, make a guy miss, stiff arm a guy, run through a guy, it's like, okay, I really like the way he runs. But how much better is that than what you've seen from Jordan Mason? So that leads me back to my original point. Why draft TDP in the 3rd?
And people who got mad at us for talking bad about the pick. And again, we've said it all along. It's not the player. I didn't even hate Trey Sermon last year, but I was like, what are you guys doing trading up in the 3rd round for a running back? And then this year they drafted Ty Davis Price. It's like, man, offensive line and safety and receiver, whatever else, all these other positions. And there's really good players out there. And you're drafting another running back who's like maybe a short yardage specialist on top of it, not even like some like passing down dynamo or anything like that. And then here comes training camp. Here comes preseason games. And I felt like Oprah. You remember the Oprah meme where she looks at the camera and she's like this, you see Jordan Mason run. And I look at John Lynch like this. Another undrafted free agent. That's why you don't have to go overspending on the 3rd round picks. And again, context is important. Who you playing against? He didn't have his prime blockers in front of him, but man, I'll take Jason Poe over whoever's playing defensive tackle at that point for the Vikings in the in the second half of a preseason game. Jason Poe, by the way, has to make the roster as well as an undrafted free agent, I think. But
real quick, who is your shadow pick for pick 93, where Ty Davis Price was taken?
Somebody who's going to be. So here's the thing: my first 4 rounds of shadow picks might all be starters in the NFL this year because it was Nick Cross who got drafted by the Colts. They're calling him the next Bob Sanders. He's having.
Listen, I'm watching him.
Yeah.
First of all, he's only 20 years old still, which is weird.
One of the younger players in the draft. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at his stuff right now, but we knew the physical abilities he was blessed with. 6 feet tall, 212 pounds, ran in 4.3s, right? So from that standpoint, it's like, okay. And there were some things on film people nitpicked that, and I'm just like, what can you teach? What can't you teach? Like that's what I focus on more. Well,
so, remember, hold on, Croc, because a lot of the talk about Nick Cross was if the 49ers would pick him with pick 61. And it was like, right. Pretty good there. He's in the conversation, but I think there might be some guys I like more. And I did like Drake Jackson more because I was all about that Drake Jackson pick at 61.
Yeah,
you go down to 93, and now it's like, oh, dude, there's way too much talent, especially when we had some questions about who's going to be the starter at strong safety.
Last night, I fell asleep kind of early because I was up really early the day before. I wake up at like 2 a.m. or something like that, 3 a.m., whatever time it is. Well, the Colts game is coming on. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just watch some of the Colts. What do you know? Is Nick Cross playing? Let me just watch Nick Cross. What does it look like? First of all, he looks massive on the field somehow. And then I'm watching him move, and he's fluid. He's out there. Man, I watched him break on this corner route where he damn near picked the ball off, and he broke on the route before the receiver did and met him high point, knocked the ball away. He did that multiple times the week before. We're talking about somebody who is having a tremendous preseason. The GM did say, hey, man, looks like Bob Sanders. Well, he's like a jumbo-sized Bob Sanders. And it's like, you drafted Ty Davis Price over this guy because you like Hufanga? No. You just don't do it.
Yeah, and it didn't even have to be Nick Cross. It's just like, and again, it's like it feels like we're bashing Ty Davis Price, and that's not the case at all.
And it probably feels like we're bashing Hufanga.
Right,
but
and that's also not the case. Yeah, like a lot of things can equally be true. That's just who I would have picked there, and I don't like. It's just like it's the Oprah meme. It's like every time 6th round, 7th round, undrafted. Find your running backs there. If you find a guy early, this guy better be a freak, difference-making, just dynamic player. And those weren't the adjectives. And I guarantee on the 49ers, I don't have their scouting report on Ty Davis Price, but those weren't the adjectives for him either. Right
I think we need to spin something in a more positive light because we talked about the quarterback situation. And it was a little weird. I think it could come off a certain way. And then, we're talking about this. And we're kind of, and you know how sometimes the fans is like, I'm turning y'all off because it's too negative, right? So we need to spin some positive.
I do want to say, like, these are the conversations they're having in-house. The 49ers have to nitpick their own roster because they got to go from 85 to 53. So they got to figure out which guys they're going to keep. They're having way more difficult conversations in real life, and they picked the guys. They love the guys, and they spent time with them more so than we are here. And again, not negative. Like a lot of good players. The 49ers have a stacked roster, a deep roster. There's really good players out there. I think the 49ers are one of the rosters that other teams in the NFL are going to come to after cutdown day and go waiver wire hunting. I absolutely think that because there's guys like Jordan Mason or Jason Poe that could potentially be out there. Brock Purdy, who knows? I could see all three of those guys getting picked up. Ty Davis Price, though. So Jeff Wilson, I think we both agree that he runs a lot like Jeff Wilson, runs angry. It doesn't really have any like height, weight, speed measurables that wow you, but he's got kind of a little bit of everything. That's the way
it was solid. If I remember correctly, because I think I looked and it was late about that time I woke up in the middle of the night, but it was like 6 foot, 220 pounds, ran sub 4.5. So we're talking about high 4.4s with the size that he has. And when you look at Jeff Wilson on paper isn't like this big back. So this is almost like he runs just like Jeff.
Yeah. And he's a little bigger than Wilson. Wilson runs bigger than he is probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. There you go. But he's a clone. So how does the running back room shape out right now?
Mm-hmm. So here's the other thing is Ty Davis Price. He's kind of like, okay, well, here's this big bruising sort of a back that has, decent speed for his size, likes to run over DBs and punish them, but he hasn't really looked great as a short yardage back. But then he's like got this little bounce to him. He actually tried to bounce when he shouldn't have and didn't get the first down, right? Like use your power there. It seems like he wants to hurt defensive backs and doesn't really want to hurt defensive linemen. I think that's a little bit of that in there with him. Maybe
there were a couple carries last week where I thought he pushed the pile a good amount.
Actually, and Hasty, by the way, that was the other guy we didn't mention. Another undrafted free agent, Hasty, who's got in there first before Ty Davis Price. And
will he be the third down back? Because that's his role, and I feel like there are a lot of people kind of trying to push Hasty out the door. I'm like, he's one of the guys who has a legitimate role. Yeah. Like he is your pass catching guy on third down. He comes in there, they throw the ball to him, they do different things with him. He's one of the first guys up. I don't know if I think they're looking for something else out of the other guys. I feel like Hasty is just the guy who's going to be around.
So what's funny? Somebody in my mentions on Twitter said they thought that because he ran so angry that Jordan Mason reminded him of Marshawn Lynch. And I actually think that Ty Davis Price reminds me a little bit of Marshawn Lynch with that ability to slip those arm tackles, has a little bounce to him, but then will punish you as well and is a hard player.
Very fluid, yeah.
I think maybe that's a good comp for Ty Davis Price is actually sort of a Marshawn Lynch style of player. And you can absolutely see how someone would love Ty Davis Price. And he had that one really good run, but I just want to see a little bit more consistency from Ty Davis Price. I don't want to see balls doinking off of his hands. And so that's why someone like Wilson, someone like Hasty are pretty safe because I think they're better in the passing game.
All right.
So big decisions to be made at running back. All those guys are NFL players, and the 49ers can't take them all. So,
real quick, who are your guys? I'm giving you 4 guys. That's not including Kyle Juszczyk. You got 4 guys. Who are they?
I think we got to tease that because I don't think we have time today. We got more subjects to get into here.
Okay. All right.
Let's tease that. Later on in the week, we will pick our guys before that third preseason game. Maybe we'll start to have to do a roster projection, a 53-man projection this week on Locked On 49ers. But I do have to let the folks out there know about the NHTSA Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over. You're hanging out with your buddies, putting back a few drinks, maybe watching a ball game, right? You know how that goes. It can go quickly. You could have a few too many real quick. And as the evening comes to an end, maybe you didn't make good enough plans on how to get home. People start to head out. You think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. No big deal. Well, it can become a big deal really quick. What are the odds that you get pulled over? Maybe if you do get pulled over, maybe you talk your way out of it. What's the worst that could happen? Insurance goes up. You pay a little fine, right? Oh, maybe you lose your license. Maybe you lose your job. Maybe you total your car. Maybe you kill somebody. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe out there on the road and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Okay, Croc. Tanner Hudson, South Arkansas.
Is that you mule riders?
Did you play against them when you were at Monticello?
I did, and I actually gave up a touchdown to them on a sluggo inside the red zone. They got me.
It wasn't Tanner Hudson that got you, was it?
It was not Tanner Hudson. I don't think he goes that far.
It wasn't his big brother or anything.
It was a big receiver. I think that game I might have gave up 2 touchdowns. I don't know, but I think those were the only 2 touchdowns I gave up all year, and they just happened to be in the same game. Yeah, I didn't give up any other touchdowns my senior year. Just SAU, because I tried to go the whole year without giving up a touchdown.
So you got 82 out there, Ross Dwelly, Tyler Croft, 47, Troy Fumagalli, 49, who made some plays in practice when we were there. Charlie Warner's just getting back. Tanner Hudson, wearing number 84, had the bad drop, but he's looked really good in the first 2 preseason games as well. I think it's a nice little battle as well for tight end too. And I don't even know how to really to handicap that one. I just think that the 49ers are going to be all right. They're going to keep 3 guys. Who they're going to be, I have no idea. If I had to guess right now, I'd probably say Warner and Croft over Dwelly, and then Tanner Hudson on the practice squad.
Tanner Hudson, man. I mean, he's one of the guys that was making a good amount of plays. I mean, Croft too. Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do at the tight end spot. That's another one. I mean, and it's a good problem to have. You know, you got George Kittle. That's your guy. And then behind him, there are guys that are fighting. I feel like it's wide open. It's wide open. I really liked Hudson last night. Again, got to take into context, like, who is he playing against? It's not Bobby Wagner and whoever that the Rams are going to have at the linebacker group trying to guard him, or who he's run blocking against, which I actually thought Hudson run blocked very, very well from the initial watch. Got to rewatch it. But overall, just soft hands. Did a terrific job catching the ball outside of that one really bad drop where he tried to like catch and run. But I liked it. I liked what I saw. It was very encouraging. And yeah, I mean, it just makes it a much tougher decision. Like you said, you know, the coaching staff, they're in there right now having meetings, nitpicking, trying to figure out everything that they don't like about a guy so that they can make the case to let a guy go. But Hudson, he might be a guy that is fighting for that 3rd spot. And that's even if Warner is a lock, because I think Warner is another one of those kind of like Hasty where you just kind of have this role, and I think that if anything is what's going to save Warner. He's supposed to be a legit run blocker, and then can give you a little bit in the pass catching game. And if that continues, then at least you can hang your hat on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like Warner's never impressed me to the point where it's like, you know, I would be completely shocked if they cut him. I think he will make the team, but I don't think he's safe or anything like that. Like this tight end 2 or 3 could be any of those guys in any order. I have no idea, but if I had to guess, probably Warner's is pretty darn safe there. But you know, I like what I've seen from Tanner Hudson too, so maybe they give the young guy a shot. I want to talk some more about defense too. Last note on offense: Donovan West playing some right guard as well as center in this game. Jason Poe playing left guard where he had been playing a lot of right guard before. So they're checking in on the versatility with those guys. Jason Poe, again, just a really clean slate. Like, he's just a good player. You just can't cut Jason Poe. Can't do it.
You say that, and I see some clips on Twitter, and I saw you talking about, like, he just doesn't lose reps. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just have not watched him yet. So I'll make it a point when I rewatch this game again to really focus on Poe and, like, what exactly is he doing?
He's easy to find. 62, shortest guy on either line of scrimmage, and he just wins. He just wins his matchups. It's pretty crazy.
How's he winning though?
What's that?
How is he winning?
Everything. It's weird. So he's athletic. He can get out and reach his blocks that he needs to. So great fit for Kyle Shanahan's system. He doesn't get pushed backwards. So he wins from a leverage standpoint. He's like strong, even though he's not tall. Essentially, the only thing he doesn't have is height. If dude was 6'4", he would have been a top 100 pick in the draft, I think.
Yeah, with his same exact, because he ran well, right? He was one of the faster guys. And we talked about that, how somehow, some way, the 40-yard dash for offensive linemen correlates better than like receivers.
Yes.
And, like,
40-yard dash and the short shuttle, which, by the way, a short shuttle phenom, which was my shadow 49er, Zach Tom, the 4th-round pick. Now the 49ers look like they hit one with Spencer Burford, who was their 4th-round pick. I liked Zach Tom a little bit better. I thought he could have started at center, at offensive tackle. He's going to start for the Green Bay Packers. He's looking really good for the Packers as a rookie 4th-rounder. So, and he's another guy, again, great 40 times, sub 5.0 and sub 4.5 short shuttle. Like, it's crazy how it correlates to better offensive line play than it does the positions you would think, like corners and wide receivers, especially.
Right. That is wild. So yeah, Poe, man. I mean, do you think that just people will have a hard time? And when I say people, it's the people that matter and the people in the building for the 49ers. Would they have a hard time getting over the stereotype of what they feel and the offensive lineman should look like? Again, I mean, I know they brought him in, but undrafted, and there is the roster politics part of things, and it's like, well, he's actually playing better than this guy, but he's only 6 feet tall.
I mean, he's playing better than Banks. If you just said, okay, look, doesn't matter how you got here, you all start at the same starting line, and we're going to race to the finish line at the end of the camp. Whoever the best 11 players are going to start on offense, best 11 on defense are going to start there. Jason Poe started left guard for me.
Well, again, though, out of that context, we don't know who he's been going at.
Yeah. And that's sort of the problem with all these guys. And I would still give someone like, we haven't really given out our official game balls, but I'm going to give out a couple. And one of them would definitely go to Jordan Mason. Just love the way he plays. But again, he's playing against guys that might not be in the NFL. So how much stock can you put in that? So we do have to pump the brakes a little bit on some of this.
Well, the stock that you put into it is what I have been saying about it. And again, I know that's kind of like I'm contradicting myself just a little bit, but I, at the very least, want you, like, do you look like the starter, and do you make the backup look like a backup, right? So if Poe is, maybe he's not even a starter, but if he's like, hey, this is my 7th offensive lineman and he's going to make my team, does he look better than the guy that's not going to make the team? And if he does, then at least, like, we're in good shape there. So can he start in an actual game and then have to line up across from Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox for the Eagles? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a whole different ball game than what they're going against now. But at least he's better than the guys he's currently playing against. And to me, that's good, because there are a lot of people that try to knock, well, this guy's never going to make the team, and he did this again. And it's like, look, what do you want him to do? Like, not do good? Do you want him to be sorry?
Right.
Like, he's got to do what he's supposed to do, which is come out there and dominate the people that I'm supposed to do, dominate. And you're saying that's what Poe is doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing with guys like Poe and Jordan Mason. It's like, well, they don't get to decide who they get to play against. Are they dominating the guys they're playing against? Same thing with scouting a small school player. Did he dominate on his level? Because, that's the only level he got to play against. And those guys did. So, we do have to move to the defensive side of the ball, because I want to talk about a couple players specifically. One, Drake Jackson. Love what I'm seeing from Drake Jackson. He has all the ability. I think it might be a year before he's like really the dude, but I think he can flash as a rookie and be a rotational guy. And I think after an off season of an NFL workout program, and he comes in at a rocked up, lean, mean 260, 265, he's going to be a monster off the edge across from Nick Bosa. So I think that's a really nice pick for the 49ers. And I just like the movement from him, and he disrupted on multiple plays in this preseason game.
Yeah, you see it. Just the ability, jump off. He's athletic. He's fluid. Looks good too for a guy that on draft day looked a little. Saying,
You can still tell there's a little bit of sloppy weight. That's why I'm saying like another year in the NFL program, he's drinking the right protein shakes and everything that they're feeding him every day. I think he's going to be an even better player next year. But you just his movements, he can change mid rush and mid like not most guys that are close to 270 that are as big as he is. They can't change directions like he can, and it's a really unique trait that he has.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you talked about not taking Nick Cross because you have Drake Jackson there, and I'm a firm believer prioritize pass rush, and they make everybody else look good. And if you have a guy like him who's going to play opposite Nick Bosa, and I watched him last night. I mean, he was kicking ass a little bit and winning off the edge, a nice little bull rush here and there, kind of push the guy into the pocket, forcing the interception. If you can get some of that, right, opposite Nick Bosa, who what Nick Bosa is going to do.
Oh, and you're going to be singled up a lot too.
That's the other thing with him, and you want him to learn to be more consistent, winning his one-on-one battles, and he has won a lot. But he's going to be out there with Kinlaw, who he is out there now. Okay, that's cool, whatever. But Eric Armstead in the interior, Nick Bosa on the opposite side. I mean, that can be good, and that's why a lot of people have asked, like, could this D-line be better than 2019? And that's tough because when they were cooking. It was just they're pinning their ears back. I mean, they were stifling quarterbacks. There were games. I think it was they held Aaron Rodgers to like 102 passing yards for a game. They held Jared Goff to 50 yards passing in the game. This is including sacks. 50 yards passing. They held Baker Mayfield like 80 yards passing for an entire game. I mean, when they were cooking. And there was a time with, started having some injuries and, maybe Bosa hit a little bit late, rookie wall, and then they kind of regrouped once they got to the playoffs. But when they were cooking, man, I mean, they were legit. And can you replicate that with this group? I'd say they have the talent to do it. There is no Buckner, but can Armstead push the pocket a little bit, which right now he's doing it against the guys he's lining up against.
It's funny. You mentioned Javon Kinlaw, that he had a really good rep, and I love seeing the move. You don't really see him have pass rush moves that often, and so I love seeing the development for Javon Kinlaw. People don't want to. They don't want to talk about this, but he did lose some reps in the game as well, which has me worried. Consistency is really the big thing with Kinlaw because he'll flash and have this crazy play where he dominates, but then he'll lose some reps too that he shouldn't be losing because he's a monster. But it was funny. It's almost like a one-on-one in practice. There was so much space on both sides of Javon Kinlaw, who was up against the right guard of the Vikings. I don't know who the guard was, but there was so much space on both sides. It was almost like a practice one-on-one. So he had, outside stab and then came back with the club to the inside. Love seeing the move from Javon Kinlaw. He got in there. There was another play where he destroyed it might have been the left guard that time where he drove him back into the backfield. So I like seeing those, but he did get moved a couple of times, and he rushes upright sometimes where he just gets stonewalled by guys. So and it's harder for him than it is for Jason Poe to have leverage just because he's so tall, right? So I do still want to see more consistency from Kinlaw, but you see the high end stuff all the time, and if we're starting to see that more often, and the consistency starts getting a little bit better, then you might really be cooking with Javon Kinlaw this year. And obviously,
gonna need him to come through big time.
Yeah, absolutely.
We didn't get to talk about Diamador Lenoir. I want to give him his flowers real quick. Played in the nickel spot, something I hadn't seen from him. Had lined up there in the practices that we went to. Haven't heard anybody report on him playing in the nickel. It was a bit surprising to see him in the nickel against the Vikings, and I thought he did well. So I just want to make sure I throw that out there.
Yep, and that's what D'Amico Ryans talks about. He liked the young guys in the nickel. So it's Womack's got that locked up, I think, with the top nickel spot. Kind of came in and out of the game. Was treated a little bit more like a starter than some of the other rookies. And then Diamador Lenoir, I think, is a solid second nickel that can also play outside. And he did.
And Dante Johnson.
Start outside. Yeah, and of course, Dante Johnson, who was banged up and not in this game. So they've got a lot of options inside and outside, do the 49ers. And that's going to be another tough cut. Both, linebacker and cornerback as well. There's going to be some tough cuts, and they can't keep them all. They can't stash everybody. Niners are going to get some guys poached. Or maybe we'll see some August 30th, August 29th trades before that final cut down day, where we see some players on other teams like we've seen in the past. So maybe the 49ers might have some future 5th, 6th, 7th round picks that they pick up trading some of these guys because there's going to be teams vulturing on the 49ers roster. All right, we'll get deeper into some of the stuff we saw, maybe some rewatch as we go through the week and get ready for a quick turnaround for preseason week number 3, the tune-up for the 2022 season. Croc and I back with you tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.